What's up guys, Macadii here, and today guys, a brand new episode of Macadii Muses, but what we're going to be doing is having a look at Volcanion, having a look at stats, Movepool, that sort of stuff, and trying to work out, is it going to be viable in OU, or is it going to be too good for OU and should go up to Ubers, because there's quite a few reasons why people think it should be going up to Ubers, quite a few reasons why people aren't going into it, so I hope you guys do enjoy the episode. If you do, don't forget to leave a like, I would really appreciate it. So, having a look at this guy's stats, he does seem to have a very tanky set going on here. He's got 110, 130 offenses, which is actually really nice, and allows him to go for a sort of mixed set, which would be really interesting to see. He's also got really respectable defenses in 80 in HP, 120 in defense, and 90 in special defense. The special defense is slightly lackluster, but the physical defense definitely makes up for that. And then finally, 70 in speed, not the greatest in the world, and I think that's going to really limit it and make it have to be basically some sort of tank or something like that. A little bit more along the lines of Heatran. I mean, I know Scarftran is a thing, but I could see this guy potentially having a Scarf, but I don't think it's going to be the best sort of set to go for. In terms of its typing, it is water and fire, which gives it really good resistances and then only a few weaknesses as well. The ability is water absorb, which is also really fantastic, giving you potential switch-ins to things like Keldeo, as long as he doesn't Secret Sword, Azumarill, and all these sorts of mons like that. So Water Absorb I think is going to be really good. Another switch into Scald, or other opposing Steam Eruptions as well. So in terms of the weaknesses, it has a Electric, Ground, and Rock weakness, which the Rock weakness is going to really hamper this guy, I think. Stealth Rocks is going to be a big problem, because we'll be moving on to the Movepool in a sec, and you'll see exactly why. Electric is unfortunate, but I don't think it's not the worst one in the world. You know, consider if it could have any weaknesses, that's not the worst one to have, really. And then finally, Ground does mean that EQ spam, you have to try and make sure you've got some sort of EQ immunity on your team, and could really limit it, especially when Ground and Rock, to get that Edgequake combo, is quite a common thing to have. In terms of its resistances are fantastic. It's immune to water types, because obviously Water Absorb. It's resistant to Bug, 4 times resistant to Steel, 4 times resistant to Ice, 4 times resistant to Fire, and then finally a resistance to Fairy. Now the Fairy one's really important. Being able to be resistant to Fairy is really huge in a tier where not many things are really resistant to Fairy. So it should be a really interesting and really good typing for this guy. So moving on, we're going to be having a look at the move pool here. So he does seem to have a really respectable mixed offensive move pool. We've got some really good physical coverage and some great special coverage as well. You know, obviously we've got, you know, Focus Blast, Flash Cannon, Fire Blast. So on the special side, he's looking really nice. And obviously, you can't go anywhere without saying about the Steam Eruption, which, there it is, which is a exclusive move to it, which has got 110 base power, special move with 95% accuracy, with a 30% chance to burn. So basically, it's a Super Scald. So that's going to be really interesting to see. He also gets the Poison type moves, which allows him to handle Fairies, same with the Flash Cannon as well. So that's going to be really interesting. On the physical side, he's also got some good options in terms of things like Flare Blitz. I think I spotted Superpower in there as well. He does get the Superpower, which is really cool. Stone Edge, Earthquake, and also Earth Power sit there. So Earth Power and Earthquake's going to make it so if another Volcanion wants to switch in on the predicted Steam Eruption or something like that, Earth Power is going to do a huge chunk to that thing. So it's not really going to be able to switch into itself, which is going to be quite interesting. I guess it's the same sort of concept as Heatran with the Earth Power, but it just depends whether running it with a ground move is going to be a thing. We just have to see. Also the same with electric types, you can't just switch in your Raikou. So yeah, it does seem to have a really respectable move pool. Gyro Ball is an interesting one. I don't think Gyro Ball is really going to be used. It doesn't have that low speed to actually be able to abuse that. Solar Beam's another interesting option, because as far as I'm seeing, that's the only way to reliably hit other bulky water types. So that could be very useful. So overall, it does seem to have a good physical and also special move pool going on here. Explosion's another fun option, which I'd be really excited to try. So that's going to be really good. So Superpower is looking good because it allows you to do a huge amount of damage to the blobs if they decide to switch in, predicting you to Steam Eruption, because obviously they're going to be the #1 switch in to Steam Eruption. I'm predicting for this. Also, it does get Will-O-Wisp and also Toxic here, which is going to be really nice. So it's going to be doing, it's going to be able to handle walls, and maybe Toxic is going to be its way to handle bulky water types and stuff like that. One thing that I've noticed, which is really impairs this guy is, if we have a look at its ice coverage, it only gets hidden power ice. It does not get ice beam. So considering both of its stabs are resisted by dragon types, that could be a slight problem with this guy, because while they may not be able to switch in, they can potentially set up on it, especially if they've got a Lumberry or something like that. So it's looking to be a very, very interesting mon, and could be big competition for Heatran. So that's going to be very, very interesting. Obviously, it also beats Heatran one-on-one because it gets Earthquake and all those sorts of things. Apart from Earth Power, Heatran can't really hit it, and yeah, I think it's going to be like a sort of, if you put a mirror up against Heatran and moved it, and Volcanion was like, it acted the same sort of role, but sort of dealt with different threats and stuff like that. I could see it potentially being along those sorts of lines, because I know Heatran doesn't get reliable recovery, neither does this guy, which is a bit of a shame, but I think that's where I'm seeing it sort of go in terms of a role. So let's have a think about the advantages and disadvantages of this guy. First of all, the one advantage which I think is pretty cool is that obviously two of its weaknesses, rock and ground, can't reliably switch in because they're not going to be able to take a Steam Eruption very well. So, and I guess the same to extent with an electric type. If you go for that EQ, predicting the switch out into a Raikou or something like that, you can really catch them off guard. Obviously, Rotom Wash is definitely going to be shutting this guy down. But obviously, Volcanion is going to be able to take any Will-O-Wisps and also Hydro Pump, so that they're going to sort of balance each other slightly, but I think overall Rotom's going to be able to trump Volcanion in most matchups as far as I can see. It has obviously the ability to go mixed, which is obviously a fantastic thing to have, especially with superpower and stuff like that, so the blobs aren't going to be a 100% reliable counter to this guy. The other really cool thing about this guy as well is the fact that he can switch into Azumarill. I ran the calc on this, and a 252 attack, choice banded huge power Azumarill's Play Rough versus this guy, if he's got 252 HP, does only 31 to 37%, which may not sound may not sound impressive, but considering the Azumarill will be put off of going for Aqua Jets or Waterfalls, and that's assuming he's choice banded, so he's got to make the right prediction to start with. I think that's going to be a really, really good thing, and could really lower, Azumarill's usage within the tier, which is going to be really exciting. It can hit back as well with either Flash Cannon, but most likely, Sludge Bombs or Sludge Waves and stuff like that. On top of this as well, this guy could function quite interestingly in a Sun team, because obviously in some teams one of the weaknesses it's got is its weaknesses to water, so having something with Water Absorb that can hit hard with fire type moves could be something that they are looking for, and could actually be a really, really nice sort of bulky addition to those sorts of teams. He is a Burn Absorber as well, being able to switch it into Scalds, Lava Plumes, Will-O-Wisps, Sacred Fires, Steam Eruptions, means that actually this guy is going to be, while he's going to be promoting Scald with this Steam Eruption and things like that, he's actually going to be stopping a lot of those burnings going on, so it would be interesting to see whether this ends up balancing out or not. In terms of thinking of the synergy of this guy with another Pokemon to make, either a Wall Core or a sort of bulky core, it actually pairs incredibly well with any ground type, because any ground type can take, they can normally take ground hits pretty well, but they can take the rock moves, they can take the electricity moves, and then on top of that as well, any water moves directed at them, any ice moves and stuff like that. Volcanion can take, obviously it can take ice moves to an extent, but still, it's going to be really interesting, and obviously grass moves to an extent as well, but then it can hit straight back again with a, Fire Blast or something like that, so it's going to be a really, really nice pairing. I could definitely see a Volcanion pairing up with something like Garchomp or something like that. So that's going to be really, really exciting to see that as a sort of potential core there. Moving on to the disadvantages, its limited speed is going to mean it's going to be worn down really, really quickly. You're not going to be able to get many hits off straight off the bat. It's not got enough speed where it's going to be worth investing in, so you're going to have to be taking a hit, tanking it, and then hitting back, and then the lack of the recovery on top of that is going to make it really, really limited. I know I've compared it to Heatran, but Heatran resists so many Pokemon, and I don't think Volcanion resists enough typings and stuff like that to make it function as well as Heatran does in that niche, but I think it's going to be a big threat to Heatran. I wouldn't be surprised to see Heatran drop in usage if it does end up going up into OU. There's no really reliable way to hit water types with this guy outside of Toxic and then just stalling them, but they can do exactly the same back to you and bop you with a Toxic. Obviously you can switch into Scalds and stuff like that, so you can kind of handle them, but you're not going to be hitting back hard unless you've got some sort of Power Herb, Solar Beam, or something like that. it doesn't really have any setup on it at all. I mean, it does get Flame Charge if I remember rightly, and Flame Charge isn't really going to be doing... it doesn't really... It limits your coverage moves, which this guy's got great coverage moves, so that's going to be a bit of a disadvantage, and just raising your speed by 1 when you're only 70 speed isn't the best thing in the world, considering all you're going to be hitting... Yeah, you're not really hitting 262 speed is not really enough speed, and you're still going to be outsped by stuff like Lopunnies, Mega Manectric and stuff like that if I do the mental maths correctly. So I can't see Flame Charge being a really big thing on this guy. The lack of ice coverage is just really, really crippling, because things can just, like, you know, things like Dragonites can set up on you. If you've got a Lum Dragonite with Dragon Dance, you're absolutely fine. So that's going to be a bit of a problem for this guy, I can definitely see. The biggest #1 disadvantage with this guy is the lack of recovery is, you know, bad, but the worst thing about it is the weakness to Stealth Rocks. If you've got this guy on your team, you're going to have to make sure rocks are off the field all of the time, because taking 25% as soon as you switch in is not going to be good, especially when this guy is a tank set and you're expecting him to take hits and stuff like that. His only real recovery way is to switch into water types, and even then, if you get the predictions wrong, you're going to be taking more damage, you're going to take Stealth Rocks damage, and it's not going to be fun for this guy. So, overall, I can't see this guy going up to Ubers. I think he's going to end up staying in the OU. He's going to be a big threat in OU. I can definitely see that. But the weakness to rocks and also the lack of recovery do really, really hamper it. And I think it's going to be a big metagame changing guy, but definitely not ban-worthy in my opinion. So those are my thoughts on the whole thing. I would really appreciate it if I could hear your guys' thoughts on it, and whether you think it should be getting OU or it should be going up to Ubers. But at the minute, it's not convincing me. I think all of the disadvantages just are bad enough where it's not going to be a real game-changing threat. But it is going to make a big shift in the metagame. So I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, don't forget to leave a like. I would really appreciate it. And I will see you guys at the next one. Macadii out.